feel like I'm in an elevator.
Going up for sales.
You got one life, for crying out loud. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jordan.
Your daily dose of reality. Your daily dose of the Deej.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need my daily dose of the Deej.
I make the news. I don't watch the news. I'm a leader.
The sales energizer, Dan Jordan.
Listen, don't worry how to sell, baby. Worry about why people buy. And it's fun.
You don't need a 5-hour energy. All you need is the sales energizer.
Just when I think it's not going to be as fun as the one before, each one gets successfully better. Success. What's the word I'm looking for? What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the sales energizer, Dan Jordan.
Boom! That's exactly it. Do that. Let's do that. Boom! There it is. Chris Stone in the house.
The middle of the week and the middle of the day. And wow, this is it.
Yeah. It's been weeks since I've had the pleasure. Yes.
It feels like yesterday.
I've been doing things on my own, flailing about like a fish out of water.
Hey,
and
not bad.
Finally, I'm back. This is a good point because there's a lot of like live events going on these days. LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn Audio, which is really cool. There's a lot of people getting, finally catching on to the whole thing that you've done for a long time. And you know what I've discovered? There's a lot of mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so easy to do these things, people do them without preparation.
Yeah.
And it's when it's all the same, it's kind of hard to see until you see the professionalism that comes with Chris Stone Enterprises, cast head in the house.
Stone Enterprises. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Name Change live on Dan Jordan. I actually am not mad at it because we all started somewhere and we all were bad. And I commend people for at least doing it, right? Just don't quit. That's all I ask is like, unless you don't enjoy it, right? If you're not happy doing it and you don't have fun, and listen, number one rule of this show, Dan.
Yeah, have fun. Is that the number one rule?
That's right. Okay, yeah, you just
you taught me. Well, it's because I could have fun, in mud. And so it's not fair. But you taught me something years ago because you were putting it together and you were doing all the the back end stuff, and because it was easy for me, I would just show up and be the Deej, and then so you you said I said, we're just you're flying by the seat of pants. I said, we're just getting started here. And you said, yeah, it's good to start like that, but you don't stay that way.
That's it.
You don't stay an amateur. You can only, I remember when I was hitchhiking around the country.
Okay.
Everything's with the story. And so here's the deal. If you ever want to hitchhike, ladies and gentlemen, and you have to get jobs because you got no money and you want to eat, you always get jobs at restaurants. For the main reason that, anything, dishwasher, mopping floors, busboy, whatever it is, get a job in restaurants because you generally get a meal for free. And if you don't get a meal for free, you get the thing that people send back. And if you don't want to do that because it's gross, make friends with the cooks and they always throw you some scraps. And so you could always eat for free.
You don't see many hitchhikers nowadays, Dan.
Yeah, why?
Everyone's afraid of what, who will pick you up. I think that's part of it.
Well, it was the same then too. But now everybody has cell phones. So it's, it's like, what a big deal. You can always call it. There's Uber, so you don't have to hitchhike. But no, hitchhiking is probably, I put hitchhiking, my main sales mentor was hitchhiking. Hey, just think about that. You have to listen, when you're a salesperson, you have to get picked up, right? And although you have to get, there's a fine line between a hitchhiker and a big idiot on the side of the road with his thumb hanging out. And so the difference is, to call yourself a hitchhiker, you got to get picked up. To call yourself a salesperson, you got to get a customer. And so you have to do all the same things that any salesperson
market yourself
has to do.
and negotiate yourself into the vehicle.
That's right. I'll before I do the guest, because this story is too good, because you took me to, there's I'll ask you, if you want to get picked up as a hitchhiker, where do you go? I mean, where do you think is the best place to be to get picked up?
I would say on roads that lead into highways, not on the highways, but like
exactly. You
like
see,
this is a place where hey, I know these people are going somewhere. They're either going north. If you're going north, then you hang out on the road that leads to 85 north or 75 north.
That's
or
it. On the on-ramp.
Says on I-69 west. So
yes,
because
that's right. Oh,
yeah. And now I'm doing segues. You see how that goes?
That would work. Yeah. So you want to be where your customers are, and you want to make it easy for them to pick you up. If you're in the middle of the highway and no one's going to stop, you're doing 55,000 miles an hour. Who's going to stop to pick you up there? So you go on the arm, go where your customers are. And that's exactly how I found our next guest, because on LinkedIn is where your customers are and where people get a chance to see you, which is why we try to put this on. And then when people reach out to you, or you reach out to them, or they enjoy some of your material, or you enjoy some of their material, and you engage with them, all of a sudden, next thing you know, you can find somebody who's really interesting and really helpful. And so you can invite them on your show, which is exactly what I'm doing here today. Awesome. with our next guest, who's made such an impression on me. I know she will on you too. My new best friend, Sherilyn Casiano. Who just can remember to put their arms in the air. As much as I try, they still, and they try to fake us out too, Chris Dome, because they're here and then they wait and they see the arms and like, oh yeah, I forgot, and then they put it up really quickly.
You know what though, Sherilyn, you have to admit, there's something about that energy of doing this that gets you either ready to go, who are these knuckleheads that I'm doing this interview with, or I'm ready to go. One of the two. So
yes, it does. That's it.
Sherilyn, I'm so glad. I had forgotten how infectious your smile is. And I'm so pleased that I get to see it now. After looking at Chris Stone for so long, it's just a blessing to get. So for the benefit of the audience and the car buying public, tell them a little bit about yourself. So where are you from? What do you do? And why are you so special?
Aha, wonderful. Well, first of all, Dan, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm very, very excited to be here, and I've talked about it for a while. So my name is Sherilyn Casiano. I am in the Detroit, Michigan area, originally from the Caribbean, spent a number of years in New York City. My company is an outsourced CFO service provider to ultra high net worth individuals, venture-backed enterprises, and GPs of emerging venture capital fund. I've been doing this for a number of years, and my superpower is knowing how to deliver high-quality information that help my clients make the best decisions about their business, their assets, their wealth, and just life in general. I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be talking about high quality information and AI.
Ooh,
and AI. She just throws the AI in there.
Not just high quality information.
Not
just high quality information. We get bonus AI on this episode. This is the bonus AI episode. I love it.
Sherilyn, on your camera there's a lens. You know that little lens? Look into the lens and not at your face. Okay. Yeah, because the lens is like you're looking at me. I know. Listen, you deal with high net worth individuals. I
Yes.
deal with professional broadcast specialists, and so we're going to turn you into that in 2 seconds. Well, so let me ask you this then. What you said, and this is for, because there's a lot of like coaches and consultants and fractional this and fractional that, and they say all these wonderful things. But with high net worth individuals and really high net worth individuals, and not like, people that would, throw themselves out the window if they had, the money of I can't think of somebody, like Oprah money, like Bezos would throw himself out the window if he had Oprah money. So people that would really, really high net worth individuals that we can't quite imagine. You're not going to get these people from cold calling. How do you get this type of business?
It's primarily referral and getting known as an industry leader. I mean, I started in the family office industry working for Henry Kravis and the New York General Partners at KKR. If you want to get into the family office business, those group of high-powered individuals are probably the best to get started in the industry and working for. So when I talk about high-quality information and I talk about the importance of it, it comes from a place of having worked for people who not only are at the top of their industry, but also have incredibly high standards around the types of information that they expect to receive, whether it's about business opportunity or their personal wealth. And so, having been trained in that, and having had the opportunity to work for such individuals, I think after 20 plus years, I can say that I'm an expert in understanding what is high quality information and how to deliver that.
Ooh, yeah. So do you generally deal with, I love by the way, the Caribbean. By the way, Daniel Jordan, you're spelling your name wrong there. Put him up there. He's saying, you should know, it's not, if you think if your nickname is
the
Deej.
French accent. Here comes the French accent.
Yeah. Je m'appelle Daniel Jordan, le fils de Henri de Paris. Hein? So Daniel Jordan, if you may be Deej, but there's only one the Deej. And so that's where we are. But I appreciate you.
You don't know what show you got yourself onto, Sherilyn.
And wait, Sherilyn, I did want to ask you. So, Sherilyn, you say you're from the Caribbean, and who else was from the Caribbean? Alexander Hamilton, who was the first treasurer, the secretary of the Treasury. He wrote the whole system. By the way, one of the greatest things I thought is that during the Revolutionary War, they handed out bonds to people, they had to fund the war or what have you. And then a lot of people sold off their bonds, pennies on the dollar, to speculators. And then at the end of the war, the biggest thing was his first big decision to make was whether or not he was going to make those who sold their bonds, it kind of wasn't fair, because they got pennies on the dollar, to make them whole again. And he decided not to do it because that would disrupt the entire system right off the bat. That one little question turned us from, turned us from the French Revolution to the American Revolution, that one little shift. And so you have that lineage about you. And so, that's something special about. I don't know why I just said that. I have no idea.
We got a history lesson here on there.
Yeah. I know. Who would have thought you would get that? So with that lineage, you say you have all this 20 years of experience of dealing with high net individuals. That means that when you were a young pup, and I say that with respect, you were dealing. How did you get, when you were less experienced, how did you start off getting that kind of action under your belt?
Oh, that's a great question.
They're all great. That's what happens when you're on this show. We don't putz around with lousy questions.
There you go. So I have always had a love for information. I love to read. I love working with numbers. And so one of my very first jobs when I was about 14, and on the island of St. Croix, we had the summer job program for youth. And I got hired by the Department of Finance of the Virgin Islands, and the person that I was substituting for was out on extended leave. And anyway, during my summer job, I was able to help the director basically get all of um, the billing and reconciling the books. And in fact, he wanted to hire me straight
Mm.
straight after. But it was great. It was just, loving details and loving the storytelling that financial information enables, and being able to pay attention to details. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about information is that in its raw form, you can take it and manipulate it and create any kind of story and put out any kind of information. But the key to high quality information is knowing what information you need to collect, how to collect it, and then how to package it so that you are giving the reader the high level information that they need, but the key and strategic details that they need to support the information that they're getting, and then in turn support the decisions that they're making, right? Because we make decisions every day about all kinds of things, and we are inundated with information from everywhere, right? And one of the big problems for us is figuring out, is this information good information or is it bad information? And not understanding
Well,
yeah.
what's bad information?
Bad information is intentional misinformation. So information designed not to present the truth, but to present an alternate truth, if you will. Information that is from a source that is not credible. Information that has been manipulated in a way that causes an individual to make maybe the wrong decision or a poor decision.
So how do you
So,
determine what is
yeah.
information that's been manipulated? How do you determine what's good information and bad information?
Those are very good questions. So in determining what is bad information, it starts with the source. What is the source of that information?
Okay.
And so, like, for example, when we are on the internet and we're searching up something, and I will get into the AI of it, which is very interesting. But one of the I would say unsolved issue with internet searches is the results. You're not sure, at least 100% sure all the time, that the source is a good source for the information. What comes up on the first or second or third page may not necessarily be the source of truth for what you're looking for. But because it's on the first page, we automatically assume that it is, right?
Right.
So you have to dig into the source. First of all, who is the source? Is it an authority?
Well, so what? Let me go a little deeper. So, what makes a bad source?
A bad source.
I mean, what makes a non-credible source? What do you look for to decide? What do you look for to? I'm sorry, I'm generating my question as I'm speaking. What makes you believe that source is not credible?
So when we'll stick with the internet example. So sometimes you may be searching for something and you go to several different sites, and you notice that there seems to be a copy and paste action going on where the same information shows up on several different sites, right?
Okay.
That's like a huge red flag, right? Because while we all may think the same thing, we will express it differently, right?
Got it.
The second is you always want to look at multiple sources and from different places. And so if you go to another site and it's repeating the same thing, my antenna goes up and it's like, I need something that's a little bit different. The other thing is, who is the source? What is their authority on that subject matter? And so sometimes an authority in a subject matter may have developed a brand recognition, if you will. So let's say Harvard Business Review, right? It's very credible. It's, top of its game, very well respected. But do they always print high quality information? Not necessarily. But because something is printed by Harvard Business Review or the New York Times, and there's countless stories where things have been retracted because it's just wrong information, misinformation, etc., or the proper research had not been done. And so there is this extra step that we, as the receiver of information, need to sort of have in the back of our mind to do when we are researching or we're looking up information. Does this make sense? We have to ask ourselves these questions, right? This is a critical thinking factor that sometimes we get lazy about, right? Because you click and you say, oh, it's on the internet, it must be true. And how many times I hear people say, oh, I got this from the internet. News about someone, news about what's happening in the world, information about a company, information about a process or what's hot or what's not.
All right, let me cut you off just for a second. Okay, so how many? I by the way love this because you're absolutely killing it. It's just as easy because most people, myself included, so I should say most good-looking people. No, but most people will look at one source, literally one, decide whether or not if it agrees with their initial premise, and then you're done. So I think that's fair. So how many sources and pieces of information do you normally take before you're willing to make an assumption or conclusion about what's real and what's not?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on the information that I'm seeking, right? So you can go to one source in a situation for, let's say I'm reviewing, I have a client who, let's say a transaction flows through and I don't have enough information, but I know that I need to go to some source to help me understand the nature and character of this transaction, how I need to record it, and then how do I need to present that in any future reports. So I need to think about what is the most credible source that will help me understand the nature of this transaction. It could be, and it may start with a check, but a check doesn't really give you a lot of information other than who the check was made payable to and the amount, right? But I need to know what caused the person to write that check. And so it might be an invoice. It might be an email request for payment. It might be a contract. It might be some other documentation. So you kind of follow the trail until you get to what is that most credible piece of document that would give you the true nature of the transaction. So you
got it. So that's the story,
right?
Yeah, that's the story that you're talking about. So you're a gumshoe.
A private eye. You can add PI to the end of CFIO. It's so true, Sherilyn. It's like it's a wonderful time for the attainment of information, but it's a terrible time for the attainment of accurate information. The other day I went into ChatGPT because I was like, okay, I need some kind of basic sort of postings for blogs related to podcasting. And so I'm like, let me run over to ChatGPT and see if they can start giving me some sort of framework. I'm going to add a human element because I believe, judgment and in your case, expertise is needed, not just for accuracy, but because you want it to be human. You want it to connect with people. Right. And so it's not that I don't trust it necessarily, but if you're going to put yourself into this thing, and I'm going to put my stamp on it. I'm not just going to rubber stamp something that's somebody spit out to me that might not be right. So I went in there and it was a general question is, how do I start a podcast? Right. That's just a general question. And they listed, you know, it was great. It was really like very detailed, like long thing. And one of the elements was select a podcast host. And they listed 5 podcast hosts, and 4 out of the 5 weren't podcast hosts. They were, one was Shopify, one was a video service. And it's just like, so my question to you is, it's not, do you feel like it's just creating inaccurate information, or is it creating a lot of mediocrity in what, you know, what you do in a business? Because in my business, that's what I see. In terms of marketing, there's a lot of mediocre stuff. It's just perpetuating all this stack of mediocre. And for us as content creators, or someone that is working with someone that's a content creator, in order to set yourself apart, you need to make it more, you need to make it excellent and not mediocre.
Yes. So that's a great example. And I've experienced that as well, using AI on the internet. Now, I love how quickly it pulls all that information, synthesizes it for me, and allows me to be able to read what it came up with. The problem with that is the sources from which it's pulling the information, as with your example, is inaccurate. And, you know, if you're not willing to go that extra step and to say, okay, this is great, and it's a great synthesization of the information that I want to look at, but I need to look at the sources, which is good in that, like, for example, a conversation with Bing would give you all of, you know, cite all of the sources. Great. But now I got to go to those sources. And even if you read some of the sources, like, why did that come up into this? Like, this isn't even, there's no connection here, right? But because something was printed and it has some of the words and the string of words, and it seems similar, it's going to pull it together and synthesize it for you. So AI is great as your best friend for, you know, helping you get started and summarizing the information for you and give you ideas as to how to present it. It's your enemy when it's pulling that information from low quality sources, or just complete inaccuracy. And it is the responsibility of the individual who is seeking that information to go that extra mile. And it's especially challenging, I think, when you're unfamiliar with the subject matter, because you don't know where the source is, you know, what is a really good source. But with a little bit of effort, you can find it.
Right.
Now, I'll give a quick example. The other day,
give me an example of how somebody used you and you used it to get that information. Like, what's a perfect, you know, example of a client that needed your financial kind of investigation, forensic stuff to help them make the right decision for their business?
Oh my goodness, there are hundreds. Okay, let me give
I just need one.
We just need one. Your best one. That's all.
Well, this is a very simple one, and we talk about high quality information. So, I inherited a client, and I was working on some financial reports for the client, and you know, I looked at what was done before, and I thought, okay, this is really good, but you know, this key bit of information would be important for him to know, let's say. Using a him, it doesn't really matter. And so I added a key piece of information, and I had to think about, well, okay, if I ask the question, well, what about this? Then the reader of that financial report will also ask, what about this? And so I added that bit of information, but before I did, I went to the appropriate source. I had to think about, where would it be, right? It wasn't going to be in my general ledger. It's not going to be on a check. It's not going to be on a contract, but it's going to be on an agreement. And for that particular agreement, I had to get a copy of it. Now, so I went to the agreement. I found the information that I needed. I included it in the report, send it off to my client and his advisors. One of the advisors, a few days later, after they've had an opportunity to review the report, I, contacted my client, and very concerned because by adding that bit of information to that report, what was exposed for my client was a $50 million estate tax exposure.
Mm.
That
50 million?
15 million.
Oh, okay.
That's still a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so when I talk about high quality information and being able to understand what is the additional detail that you need to include, that additional detail and understanding the importance of it is what distinguishes information or a report that has information from a report that has high quality information.
Mm. Well, and so, and how do they use it? And once that's done and they're aware of the situation, do you help them get through it?
Absolutely. So that was, we all got together, talked about what the issue is, how to correct it, made the correction, and it was fine till today.
Till today. And now it's all screwed up today.
No.
Okay.
Where do you feel like your best sources of I like to call it administrative intelligence, not artificial intelligence, but what are your sort of like go-to AI sources for what you do in your business?
So it's very interesting. I think that with the work that I do, AI is still new, and we're still figuring out how to build AI into platforms that we use. So I'm very excited about what that would look like, and we are building our own platform or replatforming our own technology to include AI. And what I'm most excited about is how we are going to use AI to automate a lot of the extraction of information from credible sources. It doesn't, and so when we talk about AI and it being our friend, it's great, as I said before, for helping us gather that information, synthesize that information. But AI is only as good as its source. And so if you input garbage, AI is going to synthesize garbage. If you're going to the wrong source or you're sending the AI to the wrong source, it's going to extract wrong information, and that gets included in reports, right?
Yeah, but how do you know? How, like, you don't know where it's pulling from when you use it. So is it your prompts that you have to improve your prompting techniques?
Yeah, well, yes. But if you're talking about platform and building a platform, the challenges for developers today, and including AI in their development, is understanding the various sources and the types of information each of those sources provide.
Can you help those
build
companies?
Into the algorithm, you gotta teach them to go to the right source and to ignore other sources that are not credible. To make that distinction, I'm not sure that has been fine-tuned enough.
You're right. Because I think a lot of people, I mean, there are people that are being hired at companies all over the world, and their job is to do exactly this, which is manage and prompt engineering and things that are like, to be able to really discern these things and because most of the time, and this, Sherilyn, any kind of new thing that gets put in, it's sort of like, well, hire the 24-year-old, right, and have them come in there because they know how to use TikTok and all of these things and AI and all this. But the ones that are smart, like what you're doing right now, is you're like, listen, this thing's coming and the waves coming to the crashing into the beach. So we're going to figure out how to utilize this in our business and to be able to discern and use our expertise and move forward and not be afraid of it, which is, I think, a lot of people are doing. It's like, well, this is not for me. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, that wave's coming into the beach. and that water is gonna get so far. Are you gonna go under, or are you gonna be safe on the edge? So I think it's great that you guys are leaning into it like you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, in fact, it's, if done correctly, and this is where I think the real opportunity is for, I would say, fintech and for information technology. It's, you start with the source. You have to teach the machine to know what source to go to and what source to ignore. Rather than just cast a wide net and see what comes in. That doesn't really, then you're bringing in both good stuff and bad stuff, and it's not being taught how to identify what is good information versus what is bad information.
Right. So it's for the benefit of somebody watching who's thinking, so a fintech company or any kind of company that's planning on incorporating AI within their own platform, before they do that, they need to talk to you. Like, can you help them discern which are the right sources to gather to put into their algorithm?
I possibly could.
Okay. I'm trying.
The reason why I pause because I'm an expert in my area. I know what I do. It's financial information management. It's managing telling the financial story, but understanding how to tell an accurate and truthful financial story to enhance and to support decision making, right? So if my goal and my incentive, and this is true for anyone who is involved in thinking about and strategizing about how to incorporate AI in their technology, your incentive for using AI is to be able to deliver higher accuracy and greater truth to the user of your information. And if that's not your incentive for using AI, then you're not going to be careful about the sources that you make available to the AI, because the AI is constantly learning, right? There's machine learning, there is administrative intelligence learning, and they're learning only what you give them, right? So if you're feeding them garbage, they're learning garbage, they're going to spit out garbage.
Yeah, and the more
how do we stop the garbage? I mean, I'm asking an honest question. I mean, are people feeding ChatGPT misinformation on purpose, or maybe, and is that going to perpetuate the stacking of the garbage behind the dumpster? How do we stop it?
People aren't. Let me. I'm going to ask you, because here's my question in that same vein. If more people are using ChatGPT for content, then it's just it's like making a copy of a copy of a copy. Ultimately, we're going to wind up being faded and dull.
And, that's a very, very good point. And I'll give you a quick example. So in preparing for this podcast, I did a little bit of research, and I just, did some additional practicing with using AI, and I use conversation with Bing, just not because it's better than anyone else. It just happens to be the one that I used. And so a couple of days ago, I did a search, and I had a string of words, and it spit out some interesting information, and I kind of copied it, and I looked at it, and I read, oh, this is really good. So then this morning I said, let me go see if I will get a different result, right? Like, what has the machine learned, or the AI learned since 2 days ago? Yeah. And so I put in the same thing, and it gave me 90% of what it gave me 2 days ago, except the summary was slightly different.
So the actual information never changed, but the summary
what's interesting is if there were any misinformation or inaccurate information in the first search and result, it got included in the second time. So if I had stopped there and didn't do any additional research on my own or fact checking about the sources, I would not know that there is misinformation in there. I would just take it and say, oh, well, I got the same result. It must be good stuff, right? We make that assumption. It must be good stuff because it shows up again and again and again. But that's not true, because if the first time it contained misinformation or inaccurate information, it's just, as you said, you keep perpetuating that misinformation.
Right. And so
So
the
that
easier
is
things
where,
become.
huh?
Yeah, the easier things become, the lazier people become.
Yes, but
And so,
it also creates opportunity for the perpetuation of misinformation
And mediocre content, to be
and
honest.
mediocre content, more importantly. And I think for fintech and for information technology, that is the one thing I think that developers and users of those technologies, well, first of all, users need to demand more accuracy and incentivize developers
Yes.
to ensure that they are getting accurate information, and that the AI that are being built, that they're being taught how to identify inaccurate information. And there are little things that they can do. I don't necessarily want to go into that today, but there are credible sources that you can go to all the time, right? And then there are ways that you can audit those credible sources to ensure that if there is any misinformation, that it's captured or flagged, right? And then set aside for someone to do something else with.
Yeah.
When you think about fintech and the types of transactional and non-transactional information that is being collected on these platforms, that is one of the things that when they introduce AI and they want to give their subscribers a level of confidence about the accuracy of the information that they are receiving in their reports, that there's special attention to that there is a way to teach the AI to identify bad information, not just collect all information and look for patterns, and then based on patterns, spit out results.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with that. In fact, I'm uncomfortable with the terminology of misinformation. It's just information. It just may be wrong and all that stuff, but I mean, it's just information. It's not, misinformation is almost like you're saying that there's a nefarious, that people are trying to fool people or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, and I think by relying on somebody else's, even a machine's judgment on what to conclude from that information is wrong. Growing up, there was a phrase that we used to use, caveat emptor. Used to be a very American phrase, simply meaning buyer beware. And with the understanding that there's cheats, there's charlatans, and there's people who are have ill-gotten gains for doing things in inappropriate ways, and we know that that's out there, and it forced the individual to be aware and to check multiple sources. It's a very common thing that used to tell people, hey, listen, if you're going to get a new bathroom in your house, get 3 estimates. If you're going to get a new roof, get 3 estimates. Now, as a salesperson, we always try to talk that down. You don't need that. I'm the guy. But it's basically saying, hey, you're going to, there's a chance that you're going to get taken. Get more information. And by giving it to the machine and taking it away from you, by the way, this is your value, this is your skill. It's just something I'm uncomfortable with, but I think it's a worthy conversation.
Yeah, no, so I love AI. So let me just say that. I love how quickly it works. I love how it helps to jog my thinking around stuff. But when we're dealing with individuals' personal wealth, when we're dealing with a company's operations and ability to go out and raise money and to capture markets and to deliver services, it is incredibly important. It is incredibly important when we introduce AI into our platforms for how we deliver services and how we support these companies and families, that we're being careful about how information gets is gathered and authenticated and verified and included in the reports that get disseminated.
That's right.
We love
I agree.
AI to help us, improve our accuracy. Because when AI does it right, the accuracy is far exceeds what we as humans can do within the time.
Well, I want to make sure we do
it.
right. I want to make sure we do right by you because we only have a few minutes left. And I want to make sure that people who your perfect prospect would be or a client that we would be able to help you do that. So what would be happening going on in my business for me to say, you know what, I think I need to talk to an expert. I think I need to talk to someone like Sherilyn.
Well, first question that I would ask you, what is your financial story? Do you feel like you're getting the full information that you need about your business's performance? Are you at a point where maybe you're ready for that next stage of financing, but you need to make a case or a story for why you need to go out and raise money? If you're an ultra high net worth individual and you've got a net worth of 100 million or above, and you've got complex assets under multiple and complex ownership structures, do you understand what is your true net worth? Do you understand what is how your assets are performing for you across all of the multiple ownerships? And if you're thinking about asset transfer, what information do you have in front of you to share with your advisors? I can't tell you how many ultra high net worth individuals have never had a true statement of net worth that really shows them at a high level and at strategic details what their true financial picture looks like, or even understand who truly own assets that they think they own, but they really don't own.
That's great to get it. So 100 million or above, you might need to talk to Chris Stone. He's having
not TikTok followers, dollars.
Yeah.
So this is funny because I was just watching a podcast and they were interviewing someone and they started Googling net worth on these celebrities. And of course, we all know, like, if we were to Google Dan Jordan's net worth,
yes,
it may or may not show anything, but
there aren't enough zeros.
Right. Do people actually trust that? It's like, where do they get that information? And is it like, okay, well, they own this business and this is generally what that business may be valued at, like you Google somebody and it says $13 million of net worth. It's like, they're not walking around with $13 million in their bank account, right? This is, like when you talk about like net worth, where's that information coming from?
A good percentage of the time that information is made up, completely inaccurate.
Yeah. There we go.
It has no basis.
Administrative intelligence. Blame it on that.
That's awesome. So you're the perfect embodiment of knowledge is power.
Yes.
And accurate information is power, and that's good.
Yes.
So that's very powerful. So how does somebody get a hold of you if they want to reach you?
Yes. Our office number 646-979-3656. By email, my first initial and last name, scasiano@williamswealth.com. I invite you to visit our website, Williams Wealth CFIO, to learn about our story, what we do, and how we add value to our clients. And on LinkedIn, it's Sherilyn.Williams.Casiano. Try any one of those, you can reach me. I'm more than happy to chat, learn more about what your needs are, and to figure out how we can best help meet that need for you.
Yes. So you're what the ultra high net worth people need is you and that peace of mind. Can you believe how cool it was? You just said you needed your number and boom, Chris Stone gets it up there. See, that's professionalism. Chris Stone, thank you so much.
All I have to do, Sherilyn, is blink. And when I blink, your LinkedIn comes up.
I love
That's
it.
how that works.
Sherilyn, this is your clients are half as good as they could be without using you, and I am twice as good when Chris Stone is taking care of business. That guy makes it. So thank you so much, Chris Stone. Sherilyn, thank you. And you have some final words of wisdom. I'm cutting you off.
Oh, no, I was going to say thank you for having me. And for Chris, thank you for being so patient with me.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
And I really enjoyed this conversation. I've written a number of articles, and you can find those on my website. I really talk about information management, and these are several years old. And so before AI became AI, and I think that's so prevalent and is becoming more and more important, not only in our personal lives, but in our business lives. But the Gospel of Information Management was an interesting article that I wrote. And another article that I wrote was called Big Data and You. And are you getting high quality information? And a lot of it is talking about what we've done, what we've discussed here. So a little bit before the time, but just, thinking ahead as to really what is important in terms of information sharing. It's all about decision making, right? We make decisions every single day, and we would love to know and get a certain level of comfort that we are making decisions based on information, and not so much conjecture, but real credible information. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you for coming, and we have to stay in touch.
Yes.
Chris Stone, you're the best. If you people still watching, you go get them today and make a lot of money so you could use her.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you,
Dan.
Sherilyn.
Have a great day. Bye.